So lifespan on this, I say 10 years. Expect 10 years if you look after it. Having said that, this fence here is probably 12 or 13 years old. If you don't use it in the wintertime, because they break down with UV light, right? So if you don't use them in the wintertime, they last twice as long. And this is how I roll it up. Make sure all my nets are square. I just fold it like that. And that's when I start rolling, right here. Roll it up. And if I paid attention to my ropes, it's right there. Tie it. And I tend to leave a little bow on it so they're easy to untie. And if you don't like bending over so far, once that bottom one's tied, you can easily tie it here. So as I said, these are double staked. The reason I like this double stakes, we're in really heavy clay land. And in the spring, when the ground is saturated, we're also against a 5,000 acre marsh. So when the ground is saturated and we get a high west wind coming out of the west, it'll actually knock those nets over if they're single staked. And so that's why we like the double stake. If I was in really shallow land, I would probably stick with the single stakes because they're easier. It's easier to get one picket in the ground than it is trying to get them two pegs in the ground. Yeah, and this is pretty much the same. The difference, any of you are interested in these, the difference between these, this one has string uprights, whereas these are solid struts, right? So this would have to be really tight for it to stand up the same as that one. It gives you vertical stability. Yep.
Here you're just relying on every post.
Yes.
To be your vertical stabilized.
Yeah. Yeah, 14 pickets, right?
Feet are top.
Yep. And the other thing, if it's important to you, is most of them will sell two heights, right? One will be about 6 inches taller than the standards.
Yeah, that's 90 centimeter one, the orange one.
Yeah. But honestly, we've used them for keeping a sow and her litter of pigs out on pasture. I mean, I have no experience with them in the cattle other than the one cattle beast that runs with the sheep and thinks she's a sheep. But I guess if you had some bottle calves that you were raising away from the herd and you wanted them out on pasture, it is a way of making a small little portable pasture system that can move along. Yeah. Of course, with them, you're going to want a little hut too, right? Of some sort. But most of the folks that are selling, I'm going to say pastured eggs, they'll have their hen hut mobile and then use electric nets so they have access to grass. Or one of them cacalacs, right? The little portable chicken systems. So yeah, as I say, if you'd have told me 20 years ago that this was going to be what most sheep producers were going to use for fencing, I'd have not believed you. But as I say, because of the ability to keep your livestock guardian dogs in with the sheep and keep most predators out, most four-legged predators out, they've really caught on. And what's interesting is if you go to countries you think of as sheep countries where this stuff got invented, in the UK and in Europe, they hardly use it at all compared to what we're using here in North America. They don't keep ravens out. If you have a raven problems, they don't keep ravens out. That's sort of, that's a totally different story in terms of predation, but that's where most of our producers now are looking for solutions, is on the flying predator issue. So this sort of spun out of our first our first pasture meeting, Mike Swiderski, producer up in Dufferin County. Him and I were tag teaming on the fencing, and he brought with him some wire and some ties and some ratchets, and people really found it useful. So I repeated it in June at the one in Eastern Ontario, and I volunteered to do it again here. This wire is old. It's had a lot of electricity go through it because it was what I call salvage wire when we move farms. So it's a little bit more brittle than that new stuff, but it'll still show. So Birgit said, you know, it's remembering your under and over and under and over. I cheat. I do my first one before I even put it around the post, and then around. And here's where it takes the thinking, is you decide where that wire wants to be, okay, or where you want that wire to be. And I want it over the bottom wire and under the top wire. And then snug it up, not hard, but snug it up. And then you actually bend that a little more. And this wire needs to actually, before I snug it, needs to go back under that wire, okay? So now I've got a little bit of a lock. When I do that, you know, and I tighten that, that'll actually stay where I want it. And then I bring, first of all, I make my handle, okay? And I bring that up and over. And then I do my turns, one, however many you want. If you want lots, go ahead. I'm only gonna do 3. And then I'm actually gonna break this off, okay? You twist it back on itself and it breaks off. You turn it vertical to the same run as this, and bend it back away from where you are, okay? And then if I really wanted to snug that up, I'd put a staple in there. But honestly, when you put tension on this fence back there, this is gonna snug up even a little bit more. I don't wanna snug it up too much because I'm gonna cut it off the fence, obviously, okay? And then, do I have one more? I do. Anyone use those?
We always use the well to pretend pet race.
I didn't bring the handle for those, but that's an inline one, so you don't have to cut it, right? And so basically this would go in. The thing I like about these ones is that if you're strong enough, a ratchet will turn that. You don't need the special handle. What I don't like about it is the wire clip that comes with it that you have to figure out how to get into the 2 holes while you're holding all the tension on the wire. So to me, this one is a nice one. If you have a second person that can give you a hand, tighten them in. Whereas this one you can do on your own. The problem with this is you're cutting the wire to tie this. So it's a spot where potentially you could have power coming out of it. So I am going to.
Now we use them exclusively, and we always use a ratchet.
Yes.
Because the twisting tool itself,
yes,
is impossible to carry without losing it, catching it on something. So we find a ratchet far easier.
Exactly.
It's just harder to hold the tension on the ratchet.
Yeah. But 2 people, it works.
Yes. And the other thing that we do, if we have lost all our little brackets,
and
staples in.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Or a nail that's blunt.
Yeah.
You see, I'm using I call cheap fence pliers, and my wrist isn't as strong as it used to be, so I cannot cut that with one hand. But I pinch it enough that it bites it, and then you can do this, right? That's the beauty with high tensile fence. So for this, and you'll see how these have been tied off, it's pretty much what I do. I don't try and repeat this type of knot on here. I just snug that up really tight. Again, make my handle. I gotta turn it this way just because and then, you know, turn, and I'm gonna try it this way. So around, bang, breaks off. And the nice thing with that is broke off, you won't even catch your wrist on that, right? And tear it. So you know it's not gonna tear an animal as well. And then of course, as you know, if this was the other end going in, you put it in there. Again, ratchet or a box wrench, and tighten these up. A friend of mine who was a sheep farmer on Amherst Island and has retired now, what he does when he uses these, he doesn't break this off. He leaves a long tail, and then when he's done tightening the fence, he brings that long tail around and ties it into this wire. So you're basically getting a double assurance that your power is going through everything. And I thought that was a good idea. So I don't do that. There was one other thing. Oh, if you're gonna splice a fence, I'll just leave that hang for now. Actually, I'll cut that off and I'll use this as an example. If you're gonna splice wire, you run out of one roll and you want to join these two together, and you think it's too expensive to spend money on the gripples. Like I'm not a gripple fan, but the little crimps, you can do what the New Zealanders call a figure 8 knot. So you basically do 2 little hooks like we did to start that one with. And again, this is where it takes a little bit of thinking of where you want wires to end up. And is it going to work for me? This may take 2 tries, bear with me. I have this one should have went under, hey?
You fed it through the loop?
Yep.
Okay.
And then this goes, no, I had it right the first time. It goes under that way, and over, and under, okay? So it's basically those two. I got it wrong. This is gonna turn into a granny knot, not an H knot, okay? But you basically pull them, and again with tension, these snug up, and you got a full connection.
8 points?
If you did a tension on these, like a pressure test to see how strong that is, this is, I'm going to say 2 times stronger than a gripple connection, and equal to if you're using the proper crimps and the 3 crimps on the little crimp sleeves. And again, is you could take this back if you left it long enough, tie it onto that one, and come here and tie it onto that. But you've got 4 points of contact for your power to go through from your main source through that knot into here, okay? Compared to when I tied this off, you really only have, well, you could argue that you have 2 points of contact for the power to go through, okay? That was your little fencing demo. How to save a wee bit of money on fencing.